Welcome back to Silk Warrant. Today in this story is about the moment I handed over the envelope and his whole world collapsed in silence.
The envelope was already in my hand when the ceremony started. Marcus stood at the altar looking like something from a catalog, pressed linen, cufflinks, that smile he'd been rehearsing since our third date. The air inside the venue smelled like white roses and someone else's money. He thought today was the day he finally won. And maybe he did, just not the way he expected. There was a number inside that envelope that nobody in the room knew about. Not the planner, not the florist, not Marcus, not yet. I need to go back about 14 months, because the woman standing in that ceremony hall didn't happen overnight. I met Marcus Hale at a charity gala in October, the kind of event where everyone performs generosity loud enough to be overheard. He was charming, attentive, smooth. He had a way of making you feel seen that I later realized was just excellent targeting. On our first real date, he told me he was between investments. That's the phrase he used. Between investments, not unemployed, not broke, between. I told him I worked in finance. He nodded like that explained everything and nothing at the same time. Here's what I didn't tell him. I am finance, or at least I own a meaningful piece of it. My firm, the company I built after closing a Series A at 28, manages assets across 3 continents. I have 41 employees and an entire floor in a building I also own. I didn't hide it because I was ashamed. I hid it because I'd seen what happens when people find out. The posture changes, the attention sharpens. And suddenly, every conversation starts sounding expensive. So I watched, and Marcus gave me a lot to watch. The first thing I noticed was his collar. He touched it whenever he was performing. The first time was during dinner when he talked about a deal he had just closed. His fingers moved straight to the button at his throat, adjusted absolutely nothing, then returned to the table. I filed it away quietly. I file everything quietly. By month 3, he asked to move in together. By month 5, he suggested I downsize my apartment because, and I quote, "A woman your age shouldn't be paying that much in rent." I let that sentence sit between us like a stone dropped into still water. I wasn't renting, I owned the building, but I smiled, and I said nothing. I always read the fine print before I react. The proposal came in month 7. He got down on one knee in the same restaurant where we'd had our first date. The ring was real, I'll give him that. Elegant, expensive. Probably worth 3 months of whatever he was between. I said yes, not because I was naive, because I wanted to see how far he'd go. Wedding planning with Marcus was like watching someone spend money they didn't have on a life they were trying to borrow. He had opinions about everything. The venue had to be Hartwell Estate, the countryside property with the glass conservatory and private lake. $12,000 a day, minimum. He waved the price away like it meant nothing. "We only do this once," he said. His collar shifted. I agreed. Quiet, calm, strategic. I kept one visible bank account around him, modest, believable, comfortable. The kind of balance that says stable, not wealthy. Everything else stayed behind walls he never thought to look behind. He treated that visible account like our budget. The flowers alone cost over $4,000. The string quartet was another $2,000. And the photographer he insisted on, after rejecting 3 others for not looking premium enough, charged $6,500. Every time he approved another expense, his hand drifted toward his collar. Every single time. He thought he was protecting me from sticker shock. He thought I needed someone confident enough to make financial decisions for me. Funny thing is, I actually used to be overwhelmed by budgets. For about 6 months, back in my first year of business. Then I learned something important. The thing you don't understand is usually the thing that costs you the most. During a venue walkthrough, the wedding planner, a woman named Diane, quietly pulled me aside. She asked if I had reviewed the contract extension Marcus signed. The one adding an extra conservatory fee worth $9,000. I told her yes. I'd seen it. She looked at me carefully, like she was trying to decide whether I was okay. I smiled and told her, I always read the fine print. She handed me the papers back, and I folded them neatly into my bag. What Marcus didn't know was that Diane had seen this kind of man before. She had planned weddings for women who ended up crying afterward, women who trusted smiles more than documents. She had developed instincts for people like Marcus. I could tell the moment she invited me into that office. 2 months before the wedding, she called me directly. "There are charges being approved under your name," she said. "Rehearsal dinner upgrades. Suite upgrades for the wedding party. I'm not releasing invoices without your confirmation." Marcus had been approving extra expenses using the account access I gave him. Over $4,000 in services I never agreed to. I thanked Diane calmly. Then I asked her one question. "Can you leave everything exactly as it is until the morning of the ceremony?" She paused for a second. Then she said yes. And after that, she quietly added, "I've been waiting for someone to ask me that." That's when I realized she was no longer just the wedding planner. She was watching too. That night, I went home and prepared a single document. Not a breakup letter, not an argument, just a printed bank statement. 1 page, 1 number. I folded it into a plain white envelope and placed it inside my blazer pocket. And there it stayed until the exact right moment. The morning of the wedding looked exactly the way Marcus wanted. Glass walls, morning sunlight, white roses thick enough to make the air feel heavy. Marcus stood at the altar looking polished and proud. That perfect catalog smile turned all the way up. I walked toward him alone. I had already decided months earlier that nobody would be giving me away. He squeezed my hands gently. His collar was still untouched, perfectly pressed. The officiant began speaking. 3 minutes into the ceremony, right at the vows, Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and unfolded a piece of paper. He'd written his own vows. "I want to give you everything," he read softly. "I want to build something with you. I want to be the person who takes care of the things you don't see coming." His fingers moved to his collar. Adjusted nothing, returned. I looked at him with complete stillness. "You were right about one thing," I thought. "You were wrong about everything else." The officiant turned toward me. I smiled, reached into my blazer, and pulled out the envelope. Then I handed it to Diane, standing quietly at the edge of the ceremony exactly where I asked her to be. Diane opened the envelope calmly. She had already seen what was inside, but she passed it to Marcus's best man, Derek. Derek read the statement, and his face changed instantly. Then he handed it to Marcus. Marcus looked down at the page. 1 account number, 1 balance. That number was not something his version of me could afford, not even close. The color slowly drained from his face. Then came the realization. Slow, heavy, brutal. He looked back at me. His hand moved to his collar again, but this time he didn't adjust it. He gripped it tightly instead, like someone trying to hold onto something solid while the floor disappears beneath them. There it was, the tell, the reversal. Every moment of confidence collapsing at once. I had not raised my voice once in 14 months, and I didn't raise it now. "You said you wanted to take care of things I couldn't see coming," I told him calmly. "I appreciated that. I've been taking care of things you never knew existed." The conservatory fell completely silent. White roses, morning light. 43 guests suddenly realizing how wrong they had been about me. "The prenup you signed has a clause," I continued. "Page 11, paragraph 4. It voids the agreement if either person misrepresents their financial situation during the engagement." He signed it without reading carefully. I always read the fine print. "You approved over $60,000 in wedding expenses believing I could barely afford half," I said. "Every invoice was documented, every approval time-stamped." Marcus still said nothing. His hand stayed frozen at his collar. "I'm not angry," I told him. "I just wanted to see what you'd build when you thought you held all the cards." Then I picked up my flowers from beside the altar. Not because the gesture mattered, simply because they were mine. "I'll handle the vendor payments directly," I said to Diane. She nodded once. Then I looked at Marcus one final time. Collar clenched tightly in his fist, smile completely gone. "You were right about wanting to build something," I said softly. You were just wrong about what you were building it on. Then I walked out through the glass doors. The morning air smelled exactly the same as before, white roses, someone else's money. Except it was never someone else's. It had always been mine. I have never cried at a wedding, not before that day, not during it either. But I did learn something important. There's a difference between being underestimated and being unseen. Being underestimated means someone looked at you and made the wrong decision. Being unseen means they never really looked at all. Marcus looked at me every single day for 14 months. He just decided too quickly what he thought he saw. I don't carry the envelope anymore. I actually had it framed, not to remember him, but to remember the version of myself who folded it, slipped it into a blazer pocket, and walked calmly into a room where someone believed they had the upper hand. She didn't flinch. She didn't explain. She simply waited for the right moment. That's the woman I want to remain. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Not about betrayal, not about relationships. If the people who think they know you best had to describe you today, how much of what they'd say would actually be true? And the parts they'd get wrong, did you give them the wrong information? Or did they simply never think to ask?